Bam.
We're broadcasting clear across the table right now.
Clear across the table. We are broadcasting right now. It's a live conversation between the two of us. We're really connected right now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. So this is the first time that I've sat in front of a microphone and done anything like this with anybody else ever.
Okay.
And I feel very honored to be able to do it with nobody other than my dad. I haven't even introduced myself. I'm just some dude on the internet, but you can call me Steven, and this would be just some dad. I
decided, just call me Dad.
I decided that I wanted to start just some podcast. So this is a podcast. We're two people on it, and we're just going to talk about things. I think I want to focus some conversations around telling some stories and capturing some experiences, reading some scary stories. I make some music as well. I want to talk about my music making journey, and I want to share that with people that I love. So I have my dad here.
So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
What is it that got you interested in podcasting?
In podcasting specifically, I think I have been a creator. I would say probably since I was like 10, something like that, where I finally started getting into like, oh man, I want to pick up a camera and I want to record something. But my journey had been through like video editing and learning how to actually record something, because I used to record the TV screen with a camcorder, and a camcorder from the 80s that you had. Yeah. And
I remember the big monster cable that went clear across the room and all that.
Yeah, I had to learn how to edit basic things with like Windows Movie Maker, and you work within your limitations. And being a kid, being really creative with your friends. I remember I used to do this stuff with another buddy of mine, Riley.
Well, Riley Bob,
who has grown up to be a phenomenal media expert, in my opinion. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with him too. But yeah, we used to record all kinds of things as kids, just being creative and be like, I want to throw together a video. You're going to come over, you're going to stay over for like 24 hours or whatever. We're going to edit a video. You used to sit down and like write a script and play video games like Halo and record machinimas and things like that.
I remember
just whatever dumb idea came to our mind. And it was very, very early 2000s YouTube, where you see people just doing fun things on the internet, like throwing lightsabers and then playing it in reverse to make it look like you're using the Force and stuff like that.
Well, as young as you guys were, you were really creative, really. Yeah. Your stuff made sense that you put out there.
Yeah, and I do remember working within the limitations of I hadn't hit puberty yet, neither had my friend. and I thought it was the coolest thing when I heard about this program called Audacity. It was free open source software, which I am an advocate for. And I could change the pitch of my voice. And I was like, oh my God, the universe has expanded. I
can sound much older than 10.
I can be anybody that I want to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it started a lot like that, where it was just trying to create things. And I remember the first time that I created something that I kind of felt like was like an emotional thing to give to somebody. It was actually Tony Tropiano, if you remember him.
Oh, yeah. Mr. T.
Yeah, so I had a music instructor, first person ever to teach me how to play an instrument, starting in like 4th grade. And this guy, he meant a lot to me. He laid the foundation for music for me and kind of taught me that, things can be difficult, but you can do difficult things, and really got me to enjoy music. Well, anyways, I was going from 6th grade to 7th grade. I was starting to learn how to edit videos and stuff. And we took the recording of the concert. I think I had you record the concert. Mm-hmm. I used our iMovie at the time. It was like, I finally no longer have to use Windows Movie Maker. My dad got an iMac. I get to use iMovie. And I made a DVD, and it was like for him to, say thank you for all that you did. And it was super meaningful. And hey, we really loved this song, and like add commentary like that through like text on the screen. Editing things kind of went down that train of like, I want to be a YouTuber. I want to make videos and stuff like that. So I kind of spent a lot of my time doing YouTube videos. Mm-hmm. I did them in college. I had the drive to do it, but didn't have the free time to do it. Or I had the free time to do it, but I didn't have the internet to be able to upload it.
Right.
And like, so none of that usually seemed to coincide. And I made a choice that I was like, I need to focus more on college. And, I had done more creating freshman year, because frankly, that was the most free time I think I had ever had out of my 4 years in college. But once I shot out, I wanted to get back into it eventually, but I wanted to do it my way and do it right. And to me, that meant trying to establish some semblance of quality. As part of that, I started teaching myself how to make music and edit audio and make audio sound good. So I've spent probably like the last year or so learning how to use this equipment that we're actually recording on. So by now I feel a little comfortable using this stuff.
Look comfortable.
Yeah, I feel pretty comfortable using the equipment, but comparatively to making a YouTube video, right? My experience is I sat down, had to record 4.5 hours or so of me playing a video game with somebody. And of that 4.5 hours, the segment I need to look at is 2.5 hours. And then I go and I chop that 2.5 hours into 33 minutes. And then I have to start adding a whole bunch of other things. It's a very lengthy process whenever you're doing everything by yourself.
So do you add the audio after you chop it, or do you try to work with the audio as you're playing the game?
I try to record the audio as clean as I can, just capture the game audio live as it's happening, my mic as it's happening. And then as part of, getting into this podcasting, I bought some plugins over time as I bought this digital audio workstation to learn to make music, because I wanted to explore that too. I needed to learn how to mix music, which I'm still learning how to do, but that part of that is editing audio. So I took some time and found some plugins that I can use in post-production here. And even as part of like a live chain, if I was to open broadcast studio, they would work live to kind of clean up audio and do things that, like, I'm one person. I want to focus on making things as high quality as I can without having to put in so much effort to release something that I think is quality. So I think podcasting right now makes the most sense for me, where, I can sit down. I know that this is going to sound really, really good. And I got some stuff that I can polish it up with. I can play some music and record it, put it underneath it. And I don't got to worry about the visual aspect. You know, when you sit down and you're listening to something, odds are you're probably sitting in your car or you're laying in your bed or something like that. I want to be able to help visualize things.
Yeah, well, I found that, I like to listen to some podcasting and stuff like that. And we end up, it can be the greatest story out there. And if the audio is junk, I just can't listen to it.
Yeah, you and I were talking about that the other day, where, if you're looking at something on YouTube or you're trying to listen to something, if it sounds like the wind is blowing in it, the S's are super harsh or whatever.
It's painful to listen to.
Yeah.
So it kind of detracts from the story, in my opinion.
And I feel kind of fortunate being in the position where not only am I interested in, the production side of things here, to kind of channel the creativity, but I have more of the technical understanding and the equipment now to make this more of a reality. I wouldn't have been able to do this if I didn't have this laptop that I have sitting in front of me. For years, I was chained to my desk with all of my stuff. And it's like, no, I can't do I'd have to invite people to drive 100 miles to come hang out with me. And when I'm recording video games, right, unless the other person is sitting down and recording their audio with me, and then I have to sit down and sync it all in post and make it sound good, the easiest thing is to just sit in a room with somebody and have a conversation.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
So if I can,
a little more natural,
if I can use this laptop and be able to sit and have this moment with you, I would much rather do that. And frankly, when it comes to podcasting, what I want to accomplish, I know I've been talking a whole lot here, but what I want to accomplish through this is I want to have meaningful conversations with quality people of all backgrounds.
That sounds reasonable.
Yeah. My uncle and I were talking the other day, and we came to the conclusion, it's nice to be able to have a conversation with somebody, even if you disagree with them, and know that, you're not going to be antagonized and berated and things like that. So, there's plenty of people out there in the world that have their own lived experiences. I hope to, through this podcast, share some of my lived experiences and my thoughts and my feelings. And, I offer room at the table here for anybody that offers or wants to be a part of a community that is good people, good people that, want to have conversation.
You can't be afraid to let people tell their story, whether you agree with their story or you don't agree with their story.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. Speaking of stories, you are frankly one of the best in class storytellers, in my opinion. All of my life I've sat and I've listened to you tell stories. And
they're all true.
Not a single one of them is embellished. Not at all.
Not even.
But I was hoping, as part of recording these things in person and bringing this gear up here, having conversations, I'd love to be able to capture some of the memories and things that, are memorable to you throughout your life experiences, and, maybe even, those stories of you going out there and working. You've worked all over the United States, hauling fiber and managing teams and stuff like that. And you've seen a lot and you've lived a lot. And I think that there's plenty of people that would love to hear.
Well, you know what I think's really cool is that you have all of this equipment. When I was a little younger than you, actually a lot younger, and then up until about your age, my grandfather would tell me all kinds of stories. And the most high-tech thing that we had was either a reel-to-reel or we might have had a cassette, And I really wish that I would have caught his stories on something like this, because the man could tell a story. I'll give you a little example.
All right.
Him and my grandmother, it's Marvin and Evelyn. Okay.
All right.
That'd be your great grandparents. They were going to elope. And the way he tells the story was that he lived in the Kiamichi Mountains of Oklahoma. And I don't really know much about Oklahoma. I've got a bazillion relatives over there, but most of the relatives that I dealt with were really in the Pacific Northwest that settled in Oregon. Anyway, I believe that Marv was 17 years old, and that would make my grandmother 14. They're going to elope, right? And, back then, times were a lot different. I think people got married younger and they didn't even live as long, because they worked hard. And anyway, he was telling me, he goes, he says, I was working at some cabins that were back there in the woods, and he ended up meeting a lady that came up and she needed help with a fire, right? Mm-hmm. So my grandfather, he's a hillbilly, really. And so he's like, yeah, no problem. And this lady gave him a little bit of money or whatever, and he helped her with her little cabin site. And, keep in mind that you're talking about, like maybe the early 30s, 1930s. I mean, a long time ago. So he's trying to hurry up, but he's taking the time because he knows that he's going to elope, and he could make 50 cents or whatever, he would. And so, he goes on and he talks about how this lady sat there and talked to him, and he took and brought in the wood and built the fire and got everything set up. And it was Bonnie Parker from Bonnie and Clyde. And I asked him, and again, I'm not sure what the year was, but I asked him, I said, hey, Marv, I said, were you afraid at all? Because apparently Clyde was somewhere out there and they were going to meet up over here. He told me no. He goes, no, I wasn't afraid at all. And I asked him, I said, so Marv, you weren't afraid of being robbed or being anything? And he told me, he goes, no. He said, first of all, we didn't have anything. He said, so most of the hillbillies, they didn't have any money in the bank.
Yeah, you're not worried that you're going to
you're not losing anything.
robbed.
And they also had their own kind of justice. So if, somebody was to steal from them or do something heinous, they probably wouldn't make it out of the mountains, because it seemed like, half the place was related to somebody. But
it's everybody knew everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But what he told me, he goes, he said she was very cordial. She was nice to him. They just conversed a little bit. And I thought that was really amazing, actually, that he got to meet somebody like that. And to him, he didn't really care. It was just kind of just another day. Yeah.
Just another moment.
And he got his 50 cents or whatever he got, and
keeping on.
He moved on. Yeah. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Didn't you say that there was somebody in our family helped somebody else get out of prison a long time ago?
The Van Meter side of our family, according to my father, like all the Van Meters were related. All right. Some way. They're a cousin there or whatever. And they helped Dillinger break out of jail. And I was thinking it was in Arizona, but I can't remember exactly where. And that's where this stuff would have came in handy so that I could have recorded those stories. But yeah, definitely it was Dillinger, and they helped him get out of jail on one of the times that he got out of jail.
It's wild. The crazy stories that exist.
They had kind of a weird sense of humor, and maybe that's where I get my weird sense of humor. But I know that when they lived in Oklahoma and my grandparents were married and my mom was a baby and they were part of a farm that was there. And apparently my grandfather's dad, my great grandfather, Williams, he had several acres out there. And, they had a whole boatload of kids because they needed to work the farm. And my grandfather, he had only had about a 5th grade education, but he was one of the smartest people I ever met. Anyway, he was telling me that he was working nights or something in addition to doing the farming stuff. And his cousins, they came over and they thought, hey, we'll get one over on Marv. He was asleep and they kind of went into the bedroom. They brought a goat's head. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's pretty sick if you think about it. But I guess
kind of like the Godfather with the horse's head.
Exactly. But this is farm humor, I guess. What do you have to do? So they had butchered a goat. They bring the head. They stick it on a chair staring at my grandpa's bed. So they're all sitting out at the table, drinking coffee and laughing. And
oh, this is going to be the best.
Yeah, they're waiting to hear him scream. And my grandfather, he had heard him come in, but he just laid there. They had closed the door. They were out there doing their thing, just waiting for the scream. So what he did was he grabbed this goat's head and he went out to their old car, kind of went out through a door, I guess, that went, they didn't have to go through the kitchen or whatever. And he lifted up the seat of that car and just tucked that goat's head in there and never said a word.
Put it under the seat, walk away.
Yeah, and he walked away. He went back into his bedroom.
This will sort itself out.
Yeah. So he goes back into his bedroom and then, he cleaned up his hands and stuff, I guess. And he come walking out into the kitchen and all those guys are waiting for him to just be mad, or scream and yell. And he shocked them because he didn't say a word. So they thought, oh my God, he hasn't seen it yet. So he even sat down and he ate with them. They hung out. They went on their way and they went off snickering, thinking, yeah, just wait till he finds that goat's head. He never said a word. About a week goes by and I believe it was summertime in Oklahoma. It's hot. And I don't think any car back then had air conditioning. It was roll the windows down, and the guys, they started smelling something in the car and they're looking around and they can't.
God, what the hell is that?
Yeah, they couldn't. And as every day and every moment
it got
worse until they finally found this rotted goat's head that was tucked way deep under the seat. And they were really, really pissed off at him. And he got the best of him, and they showed up and he just kind of sat down and laughed. And they didn't know how in the hell he got that out there. But I thought it was a great, great deal.
That is, Marv was quite the character. I love the story that you tell about Marv, that it's him with the sandwich and this guy, guy that's working and eating his sandwich at work. I think let's share that one.
Yeah. What was happening was he worked at the mill in Roseburg for Roseburg Lumber. And mill had...
What year was this?
This had to be 1950s. So,
right.
Yeah, 50s, early 60s maybe. So he's working over there. And of course, the mills, the train tracks came right by there because, they had the log ponds and stacks and all this stuff. And then they'd bring it in. It was Roseburg Lumber and they would make studs and plywood and all this stuff. And then they could just load it directly onto a flat car and just ship it out, right? But he had this boss that, kind of a two-parter, I guess. He had a boss that was really just a dick. I mean, there's
lack of a better word.
Yeah, it just kind of covers it.
Here, he was just a...
Yeah, exactly. So that guy, he gets this new coat and he comes in to the mill and he's like just rubbing it into everybody's face. And, the mill, inside the mill, you get working, pulling off the green chain or whatever you're doing. And it's too hot to have the coat on because you're moving. But anyway, remember the railroad tracks came right by there, right up by the building. So he sees this bum that's walking down the railroad tracks. And his boss had his brand new jacket hanging up over a hook by kind of close to the door. So it'd be convenient for him to throw it on to go outside, you know?
Yeah.
This bum comes kind of walking by and Marv goes, hey, friend, come here. And this guy, he comes up there and he goes, you look cold. Yeah. He goes, here, I'll let you have my jacket. So he went ahead and handed off the jacket, and this guy put on this jacket and he's looking at it and it's like, man, wow, I got this nice new jacket. My life has
changed.
And he starts to walk away, and his boss comes in, and there's maybe like 5-10 minutes have transpired. His boss comes in and he's going, Marv, where's my jacket at? What'd you do to my jacket? He goes, I didn't do anything. He goes, there's a guy walking down the train tracks that looks like he's got the same jacket you do. Why don't you ask him? And that guy, he run out there, and the guy had a pretty good head start, so he never got his jacket back. The bum just ran off with the jacket, and my grandpa thought that was funny. But while he was still working at that mill, he'd bring his lunch every day, and those guys had those Stanley thermoses, the green ones, you know? So he'd have his thermos, and you know, I have a couple of those thermoses, but they're not the same as they were way back then. I think they were much better. But anyhow, he'd bring himself a thermos of coffee, and he would bring himself some lunch. Every day somebody was stealing his sandwich and taking stuff out of there, and then they'd just leave the debris in his lunchbox, and it was pissing him off.
Did they eat the whole sandwich? Or
Yeah, a whole sandwich. Might have left a piece of crust or something.
Oh my God! And here I was thinking that now you just took a bite of my sandwich. Now you ate the whole thing.
Yeah. So you know, and no one would own it, and so he thought,
which one of you bastards ate my sandwich?
Yeah. So he was tired of it. So what he did, this had to be in the 60s, because we would go over and spend summers there, and they had this bucket that was a bucket like you'd put in a well. And that was actually a footstool, and it had a top on it. And we had toys that were in that bucket, you know. Okay. And then when we would come to Oregon to hang out for a summer or whatever, we'd jump into that, start pulling stuff out, Tinker toys, Lincoln Logs, whatever, and some plastic dinosaurs, because no childhood is complete without a plastic dinosaur. Anyway, Marv's pissed off. He can't get anybody to own it, so he decides he's gonna show him. So what he did was he had gotten a hold of some X-Lax, and he figured, all right, yeah, I'm going to give the shits to whoever's doing this, a little parting gift. And he stuck a plastic dinosaur in the bread. And so he had this nice sandwich. And I think that it was either a Triceratops or a Stegosaurus or something. Yeah, you know.
Perfect stage sandwich.
It just fit great into the sandwich. And so this guy, he kind of looks around and just snatches the sandwich out of the box, closes the box back. And Marv sees this guy kind of walk away, and Marv's kind of smiling because he's thinking, all right, it's you. I know it's you. And then all of a sudden this guy, you know, he takes kind of a little bite, and then, you know, kind of looking around so he didn't get caught or whatever. Then he takes a big old bite out of that sandwich, bites in and like breaks a tooth on this plastic dinosaur. Screams, and Marv just laughed, and his lunch was safe from then on. But yeah, those things were fun. My grandmother, on the other hand, she would tell me stories about when she was a little girl and they were poor. You know, all of them were poor. Yeah. And she used to ride a horse to school, and, you know, I guess wherever the school was on the other side of this body of water. It was like a little river or something. Mm-hmm. And just a real slow moving water. Well, she'd take a 22 with her, because there was cottonmouths and stuff that were in these bodies of water, and, you know, and stuff. And she told me that she kind of parked the horse, you know, tied him off, and went to get in the little rowboat that they had. And a cottonmouth had dropped out of a tree, low-hanging tree that was over the water, and landed right in the boat, right in front of her feet.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So, you know, she's committed. And those things have a foul temper, and she was really a good shot. And she shot the snake in the bottom of the boat, and that bullet definitely punched a hole in the bottom of the boat.
Oh, my God.
But she didn't get bit by the snake. And, you know, back then, when Marv was a kid, one of his cousins ended up getting bit by a cottonmouth or something and died. It was just a kid. And, I don't know if he had any kind of allergies or anything. I know that would be a nasty bite to get bit by that, but people get bit and they live, but apparently not so good for him. He got bit and he died. And then work just kept going on, they all were poor. They all worked on the farms.
I'm going to shift gears here. A little impromptu advice column. Have you ever heard of Reddit before?
Of Reddit? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard of Reddit.
All right. Reddit is just, to summarize it, a whole bunch of forums. People, create forums, and subreddits are what they're called. Topics, and people posted these topics and you got a whole bunch of comments and stuff like that. One of the Reddits that exists is called Am I the Asshole? And I've been looking at you and I'm like, I want to know what your take would be on some of these things.
All right, let's hear it. Hopefully I'm not an asshole at the end of this.
Am I the asshole for telling my friend to suck it up when we went to a wedding without alcohol? Okay. Here is the description. We're going to get down to it. All right.
All right. Let's hear it.
Please forgive me for bad English, not a native speaker, says this person. Right. So back in our college days, we were a group of 4. Me, Ethan, Vivian, and Jayesh. Names are changed. Jayesh was Indian and he had come to our college to study. Actually, me and Jayesh were both foreigners who were there to study. I chose to settle down there. Jayesh came from a very wealthy family. They have a very big jewelry business. From what I learned from Jayesh, he was a native of the state Rajasthan in India, and people from that state are really famous for being involved in business and are ultra conservative, very religious, don't consume alcohol and meat, etc.
Okay.
Here is where the story starts. We graduated about 4 years ago, and we're all busy in our lives, but we're still in touch with each other. As mentioned earlier, I too was a foreigner from an Eastern European country, but chose to settle in America. Jayesh went back to India. One day, Jayesh had us all on a call and informed us that he is getting married in India and invited us to the wedding. He offered all of us first-class tickets to and from the wedding and took place in a 5-star hotel, and the festivities lasted for a week. It was literally a free luxury vacation for us. Jayesh informed us beforehand that alcohol and meat-based food won't be available in the wedding, and we had no problem with that. When we arrived in India and reached the venue, we were overwhelmed. There was different dress code for each time of day, tailors available to personally stitch the clothes for the guests, sightseeing tours of the city and whatnot. Ethan seemed a bit miffed. During the 4th day, when his discontent was getting way more visible, I asked him what the issue was. He said that this wedding feels so crappy without alcohol and feels incomplete without meat. I told him that he was okay with it when the invitation was made, and he can either suck it up and enjoy the wedding. It's not like the food was bad or anything. The food was great. Or leave, which made him cranky for the entire trip.
Oh, man.
When we returned, he told me that it was rude of me to tell him to suck it up, and he was forced to get through a dry wedding for a week. I told him that if he was miffed about alcohol and meat amidst all of the grand festivities that basically made the wedding a free vacation, there's some serious issue with him, and he is acting very ungrateful. Am I the asshole for saying that?
No. I don't think so. I got to agree with him. I don't know. I've been to some festivities that had alcohol, and I either chose to have some or not. And then, but
if you're invited,
yeah,
it's
I'd be just like, wow,
In my head, something goes over. It's like, this is a situation I am not in control of. Look at all of the positives here.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know how much traveling the gentleman that got really upset had done, but to be able to go to another country, to be involved in a culture, obviously it's a cultural deal the way this wedding is, if it lasts for that many days.
Yeah, and if it's a request, that seems very fitting. Yeah. Like, hey, it's their space, their time. And I'm speaking to somebody that's planning on getting married here this year.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, well, and I'm guessing if it's a 5-star hotel, in his off time, if he wanted to get something to drink, he could. No, I think he needed to suck it up, I got to say.
Person was not the asshole. The person that was told to suck it up is in fact the asshole. Am I the asshole? I rejected my brother-in-law's child being a flower girl.
I can't wait for this one.
All right.
Let's hear it.
I, 27, female, am getting married this spring to my boyfriend, 26, male. I'm looking at these numbers. I'm like, wait, this isn't me. No. We've been planning our wedding for 2 years now, and I've been trying to get blessings from both sides of our families, but only my family was supportive of our decision to get married. While receiving racist remarks from my to-be in-laws, they disapproved of us getting married and wanted us to wait a while before settling down. Since we weren't receiving full support, we decided to plan the wedding ourselves and finalize the details like the date, the venue, catering, etc. We are not and have not asked for any financial support, and they have not asked if we need any aspect of the planning. I also asked a family friend's daughter, 4-year-old female, to be the flower girl after the engagement, and her mom agreed. Fast forward about a year since the flower girl was confirmed. My boyfriend's older brother and his wife recently gave birth to a baby girl. Let's call her Amy. And they have been badgering us about allowing their baby will be 11 months old by the time of the wedding, my fiance's niece, to be the flower girl. My boyfriend and I pointed out that Amy isn't guaranteed to be able to walk by that time, and Amy's father responded by saying that he could either carry her down the aisle, that he could carry her down the aisle. When we initially said no to that idea, as I think it's weird giving the role of a flower girl to a child that won't be able to physically be able to do any of the normal flower girl duties, and it would look ugly having a toddler walk down next to an adult holding a baby. Amy's father and Amy's grandmother kept on badgering us with the same questions. Quote, can Amy be the flower girl? What color theme is your wedding? We'll buy a dress for Amy. Since Amy is our first and only grandchild, it's tradition for our family for her to be flower girl.
Oh my God. That sounds
Am I
like
the
bullshit.
asshole to reject Amy as the flower girl? Here is some context. Amy's father and my boyfriend have 2 other siblings. Amy is currently 7 months old and cannot crawl or sit up unassisted. Amy's father and Amy's grandmother make racist comments about me behind my back.
Wow. No, that definitely, if they had already, first of all, it's their wedding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think they should be able to do it the way they want to do it. And, you know, it's their life. They're going to do that. And they had already picked somebody to be the flower girl. How do you renege on that? I think that they're being the asshole trying to pressure her. You know, what do? Do you put that little baby and lay it down on a skateboard and just kind of run it down the aisle?
All right, use that dental floss. Nobody will be able to see it.
Yeah, and then
the fishing line.
As the kid swallows the ring before it ever gets there. So no, I stand with them.
We'll call that on the Am I the Asshole? Some other things that we've been interested in, been discussing in this podcast has been reading scary stories, particularly like creepypastas and things of that nature. There is a subreddit that is out there that is called r/nosleep. And I haven't really taken a look at it, but I think that this would be a pretty interesting setting to read through some of these and maybe talk through them. And then, later on, whenever we get this all more set up, we'll get you reading some of these scripts and stuff like that, because you got that broadcasting voice. I've heard.
Oh, well, thank you.
For those of you that have been unaware, for the last how many 10 years, something like that, people tell you, are you on the radio?
Were you on the radio? Yeah, I had that, and then I usually nod my head yes and say no, I wasn't on the radio. That was my brother. So
I fell in love with the girl from the True Crime podcast. That's the title of that one.
I wonder if that's Ashley Flowers.
Library of Demons is another one. Recurring Dreams.
Let's do Recurring Dreams.
Recurring Dreams.
Yeah.
Okay. This was posted 7 minutes ago, actually.
Oh, nice. We're right on top.
Yeah. Okay. So we're getting the live feedback here. All right. Recurring dreams are the strangest thing ever. We know nothing about them, why they happen, what they mean, and yet a majority of people have experienced them in their lifetime. Recurring dreams are also vastly different from person to person. Some may have a funny dream, and when they awaken, they begin laughing and just remembering it. Another person may have a weird dream, and when they awake, it causes them to question themselves. How the hell did my brain come up with that? They'll ask themselves. Finally, some people may experience a sad dream, maybe reliving their last moments with a deceased loved one. Unfortunately, I don't fall into any of these categories. Instead, I sadly get recurring nightmares. I wish I had funny dreams or weird dreams. Hell, I'd even take sad dreams, but I seem to be stuck with creepy, scary nightmares instead.
I do that myself.
I started to get this recurring nightmare about a year ago, and it has continued every night since.
Wow.
So I want to take a pause right there and talk about lucid nightmares. Have you experienced a lucid nightmare?
Oh, absolutely. And matter of fact, I've had them where you wake up and you go, oh my God, thank God that was only a dream. And you go back to sleep and it picks right back up, right where it was. Or I've had the one that was really creepy and I woke up in the dream saying it was only a dream.
I've had that happen.
Yeah. And realize I am still posed because I'm still in that state.
I have asked people, like, have you ever experienced the sensation of chills in your sleep, like the hair on your arm standing up during a nightmare? You know that feeling?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. For me, it wasn't a recurring nightmare, but it was a lucid one. And I remember the house that we grew up in, a childhood house.
Right.
And everything seemed like the layout of the house, everything was completely as it was, right? But outside, it was pitch black, dark as can be outside, couldn't see anything outside. And we lived on the corner, and there was a street lamp on that corner.
Yep.
In this nightmare, I was continuing to see the silhouette of a little girl that was standing there with hair covering her eyes. It's kind of like The Ring. They're like, what the, oh my God, what the hell is that? What the is that? You know? And in this dream, I was like starting to panic because it was like everywhere I tried to avert my eyes, my gaze, she was there. And I'm standing there. I am looking outside the window and I see her standing there looking at me under the street lamp. I look at you guys and I say, don't you see her? And you said, see what? And she's standing in the washing room in the darkness, right staring at me. I said, that. And she's not there. And I walked down, and you know, like how my room was down the hallway. It was right there. Mm-hmm. I was standing by the couch and I said, she's right there. And she was standing in my bedroom, staring at me from the bedroom, and then woke up and was like, oh my God, what was that? And I pulled my blanket, and I was still asleep, and she was in front of my face.
Yeah, that
is when I woke up.
I tell you, I was about 8 years old, and they used to give us immunizations at school, right?
Okay.
Nothing more terrifying for a kid than you're going to get a shot. In this case, when you got them at school, unless it was the TB test that they scratched you or whatever, you basically stood in line. They had a gun that had a bottle of whatever they were vaccinating you for, and they shot it into your arm.
And children line up. Bang!
Yeah. And you know, I think about it today, and it's like, why would you put that same thing against this kid, this kid, this kid? Apparently Hep C and all of that stuff must not have been a thing back then. But my point is on this dream, I had gotten a shot at the doctor's office with a needle. So in the dream, I was out and running from something, and I look behind me, and it's a giant hypodermic needle.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and this thing is gaining on me, and it picks me up by the pants. And it's not in me, but
like in the
it's going to lift me up to where I kind of slide down onto this thing.
Oh my God.
And it was terrifying. You know, you're 8 years old and you're just kind of tripping out about this. And I would have that dream over and over and over.
Well, it sounds like we both have had our share of nightmares. Let's see what's going on with this guy. So he says, I started to get this recurring nightmare about a year ago, and it has continued every night since.
Okay.
It started out simple enough. I would find myself in a long, dark hallway. The only light I could see would be at the near end of the hallway. The light came from 2 torches on either side of a heavy-looking wood door. In this dream, I would walk down the hallway until I would reach the door. The dream would end when my hand would reach up and go to push open the door. I never got to see what was on the other side of that door until 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I fell asleep and found myself in that oh-so-familiar hallway. Only this time, I noticed two things were different about the dream. The first, as I looked down the hallway towards the door, where once there were 2 torches in the door, now that scene also contained a plaque on the wall next to the door, just underneath one of the torches. I couldn't see what was on it, but I saw that the metal of the plaque was an insanely dark black color. It was so dark that it seemed to suck all the light from the torch into it. The second thing I noticed was how I was feeling, where once I felt boredom and little annoyance at having the same boring dream over and over and over again. Now I feel fear. Not just a small jolt like when there's a jump scare in a movie, but a deep, primal fear. Like there was a predator stalking me and I needed to run away as fast as I could. I needed to do something fast, or else something terrible would happen to me. This feeling made the hair on the back of my neck stand up, and it terrified me. That's what I'm talking about right there. The hair on the back of your neck standing up and you feeling that.
It adds a whole nother dimension to the dream.
I had another one of those dreams where it was like same in our old house, and it was black. Everything was black outside. And this was probably during the era of watching The Conjuring or something like that. In the dream, it was dark outside, and we had like those French doors that we went to the backyard, and in the blackness, something was like screaming. Kind of, if I hit this button here, you'd hear.
That's frightening.
That type of thing, and you're hearing like banging and banging, and all of the crosses in the house flipped upside down, and I ran into the bathroom. And
this is a real exorcist sounding dream.
Yeah, it was really creepy. Yeah. And whenever you're having a dream like that like scares you, the hair on your arms and stuff stands up, and it feels like, at least for me, it felt like super duper intense, where you're just like, your entire body feels like, you're just wake the up, pull myself out of this. Sorry, I had to comment on that because I know that feeling in a dream. Like the dream normally did, I felt myself beginning to walk forward toward the door. With each step, the fear and dread seemed to deepen and even make me feel sick to my stomach. I tried to fight it, but it felt as if something else was forcing me to walk forward. Each step felt like I was walking closer and closer to my death, or something. I don't know what's worse than death, but I was terrified to find out. When I reached the door, the dread I felt was overwhelming. The pit in my stomach made me sick, and I was positive I was going to throw up, but somehow I managed to keep it down. As I looked at the door, I noticed it changed. Where there used to be a heavy wooden door, now stood a door made of pitch black metal. It sucked in the light and gave off almost an aura. The door now seemed evil. That was not the only thing to change about the door. What once was a plain door now had intricate carvings on it. The carvings depict people committing different acts. One carving showed people gorging themselves on food and drinks. They were depicted as inhumanely large, and they seemed to even fight over every little morsel of food. Another depicted people committing acts of extreme violence towards others. It showed war and torture. It showed people being basically consumed by anger and hate, essentially becoming animals and trying to inflict as much harm as they could. A third carving showed people committing different sexual acts, from more simple acts to the most heinous you could think of. It showed everything from simple acts of lovemaking to terrible acts like necrophilia. They were all displayed in this carving. The fourth showed me jealousy and bitterness. A man hated another because the man liked the other's wife. Another watched what seemed to be their ex-partner laugh with someone else, a look of anger and jealousy on their face. The fifth showed me people hoarding money. They betrayed others and did everything they could to gain more. They never helped others, only themselves. They needed the money. The sixth carving was the second from the top of the door. This one just depicted people looking down. It seemed as if they were observing all the other atrocities being committed on the door. The only expression they had was a look of boredom or apathy as they watched what all the others did. The last carving was at the top of the door. And unlike the others, it was oddly beautiful. It depicted a beautiful city in the clouds. The architecture seemed to be pieces picked from different time periods. I saw a villa created in classic ancient Roman architecture. I saw a cathedral that almost seemed to be an exact copy of the Cologne Cathedral. I even saw some modern-day skyscrapers. Even with all the mix and match architecture, the city seemed to flow and was stunning. Standing in front of the city was a man. He was dressed in clothes fit for a king. Silk robes, gold jewelry, hell, he even had a crown. He, like the last panel, was looking down, almost watching the atrocities and the other carvings, what they were committing. Unlike the last panel, he was not bored or apathetic. He had a calm, serene smile, almost as if he was enjoying what was happening. The oddest thing about this man was not the smile or the clothes. He had a set of massive, pitch-black wings coming out of his back. They looked like the door, and the plaque seems to suck in all the light that happens to hit them. This new design of the door filled me with anxiety and dread. Why, after so long, is it changing now? After observing the door, I felt a force seemingly turned my head, forcing me to look at the plaque now. It was simple. Pitch black metal with no designs on it. In place of designs, there was writing. Lesciate ung speranza voa chehitret.
I'd be careful saying that. You never know what you might have just called up.
I did not recognize what language it was written in, but all I knew is that as soon as I saw it, it had a huge effect on me. It seemed as if all hope I had of waking up and getting out of this dream just left. It was as if all my hope abandoned me and I was now stuck in this reality. I felt tears run down my cheeks as I felt myself suddenly start moving again. I felt my head turn back and watch as my hand slowly raised and reached for the door. I tried to force myself to stop, but it was as if something was in control of my body, not myself anymore. I looked around, trying to find something, anything that could help. I felt myself touch the door, and I searched even more frantically. As I felt myself slowly opening the door, I looked up, and for just a second, I saw something. At the top of the door, the carving of the man who was in front of the city and looking down was now looking directly at me. He had a smile, but now it was more sinister, evil. It was demonic. The door opened, and instead of waking up like I normally did and like I was wishing would happen, I found myself in a new room. It was dark. I could only make out the stone floor and some candles in what I assumed was the center. There were 3 candles arranged in a big triangle on the floor, but their dim light did not reveal what was in the room with me. As I felt myself walk forward, I felt like I was being watched. There was something in the shadows staring at me, observing me, like they were a predator and I was their prey. I slowly felt myself move until I was in the center of those candles. I tried moving, but I was still frozen.
Well, I was wondering when you were going to finally visit me.
A voice called out from the shadows. The voice I heard, I can only describe as perfect. It was deep, but not too deep. Masculine, but not too masculine. It had a slight accent, but I couldn't place it. Maybe slightly Middle Eastern. The only way to describe this voice is to imagine the perfect male voice, and that's what it was.
I kept inviting you in, but then you would leave immediately. That really hurt my feelings.
The voice said, with a hint of amusement and fake hurt.
I'm glad you accepted my invitation finally.
The voice seemed to be coming from everywhere. He was on my right and on my left, in front of me, but of the scariest is when it came from right behind me. It was so close, I could feel his breath in my ear. His hand on my shoulder. All I could do was look forward and pray I would wake up soon.
I'm sorry, but that won't work down here.
The voice said in a mocking way.
But I will reveal myself so we can talk business.
The voice came from right in front of me, and as if materializing from the darkness, he appeared. The only way I could describe him, just like his voice, is perfection. He had long golden hair, as if light itself had become hair and rested itself upon his head. He was tall, perfect shape, broad shoulders, muscular arms. He was as if perfection came to life, dressed in white robes made of silk or some other lavish material. The most striking thing about him were his eyes. They were golden in color, almost the same color as the sun, but they did not give off any of the same warmth. They seemed to stare right through me, as if he was looking directly at my soul, evaluating it. judging if it was worthy or not. It terrified me. As I observed him, I realized he looked eerily similar to the man in the carving. He did not have a crown or wings, but other than that, they were basically twins. He smirked at me as if reading my mind.
In another life, maybe.
He said like he was trying to make a joke, but I heard bitterness and anger behind his words.
I need you for something.
He said, looking at me in excitement.
All I need you to do is sign this contract.
Out of nowhere, he pulled out a scroll. It looked old, ancient almost. As soon as I saw it, the dread I felt turned to terror. I don't know what the contract was. All I know is that I needed to get away from it immediately. He held up the contract, and I felt my hand slowly being forced to raise toward it. When he saw that, his smile grew. It grew more than what it was humanly possible. It became more sinister. It seemed to force more of his face into the shadows, giving him a more evil look. His eyes seemed to flicker from gold to a deep pitch black. I tried to force my hand away. I tried to force any part of my body away. I couldn't control myself. I started to cry even harder. I couldn't touch that contract. I started to pray. I apologized for everything I did in life. I promised that I would become a better person if I got out of there. As I prayed, the man's smile started to drop. He started to look more and more annoyed. As I continued to pray, I started to feel the control return to me. My hands started moving away from the contract. The man's smile was now replaced with a snarl. He started to growl like an animal.
No, this one is mine.
He growled out, his eyes now pitch black. He started to move closer to me. I kept moving my arm back, but he seemed to move faster and faster. Right as he was about to force the contract into my hand, there was an incredibly bright flash of light. I felt warmth, peace, and safety all around me as the light flashed even brighter. I heard the man give an inhuman scream before I suddenly jerked awake in my bed. My breath was ragged as if it all sprinted in a marathon. I jerked around looking for the man, but as realization settled in that I was back in my room, I started bawling. I let out cries of terror and agony as the dream settled in and realized I was actually safe at home. Over the next 2 weeks, I didn't have that recurring dream. The first couple of nights, I was afraid to fall asleep. I would stay up until I basically passed out from exhaustion. When I realized I wasn't having that recurring dream anymore, I was ecstatic. For the first time in over a year, I dreamt normal dreams. I dreamt of my family, my mother, my father, even my grandparents were there. It was nice to dream about them because they had passed away a while ago. They always seemed to try and tell me something, but when I woke up, I would never remember what they said. It's exciting to have normal dream problems like not remembering them. Last night, I dreamed of a trip of my parents, grandparents, and I took to the beach when I was a kid. I remember that trip being really hectic. I even dreamed about when my grandparents yelled when I was in the water. They seemed frantic, yelling to tell me something, but the last couple times when I woke up, I either couldn't hear or just couldn't remember what they'd said. Tonight, I laid down for bed, ready to dream about all the good times I had with my family again. I laid my head down, closed my eyes, and with a smile, I drifted off to sleep. When I opened my eyes, I was in the familiar hallway again. As soon as I saw the dark door, I felt terror, tears in my eyes. I felt myself being forced down that hallway. All I could do was scream and cry in my bed. I didn't want to be here. I wanted my family. Please, God, don't let that man be here. As I got closer to the door, my tears fell quicker and I felt sick. I thought I was going to throw up, but I couldn't. My body was basically shutting down as the outside force controlled me like a puppet on some strings. I saw the carvings on the door and many people committing atrocities, seemingly mocking me. I saw my arm raise and the door open. My heart stopped as I saw the man immediately once the door was open. He was standing by the candles with a disarming smile on his face. As I was forced to walk to the center once again, his eyes were once again a golden color, but once again they were filled with an evil intention.
Well, that was a rude exit, wasn't it?
He asked me, the smile on his face drooping slightly before it grew again.
Hopefully this time we won't have any interruptions.
He held the scroll up once again, my arm being forcibly raised as well. I fought it as hard as I could. I could feel my muscles strain from how much I was fighting. It didn't help. My arm was still reaching for the scroll. I prayed again, asked for help. I didn't want to be there. I was scared. I wanted to wake up. The man started growling again. He was getting angry. Right as I was about to touch the scroll, there was another flash of bright light. I was ecstatic. I cried, tears of joy. I was safe. The man growled deeply, and it looked like he was being pushed back.
No, I refuse to let you take him again.
He yelled out, his voice deepening, becoming almost
Demonic sounding.
I closed my eyes as the light became even stronger. I felt the peace and safety, and I smiled before I let out a breath. I felt a hand wrap around my waist. I opened my eyes and saw in terror as the man grabbed me through the light. His skin was sizzling, burning as he held me. He couldn't let me go.
You are not getting away.
He growled, his voice becoming even
Deeper.
A dark shadow seemed to come out of his hand, and he seemed to try to spread up my arm. It seemed to fight against the light I was standing in. I closed my eyes and prayed even more. It was all I felt I could do. Even with my eyes closed, I could tell the light was getting brighter and brighter. I heard the man scream in agony. I almost clicked the robot button. Let's stick with that one. Now I lost my place here. The light was getting brighter and brighter. I heard him scream in agony. It sounded like a wild animal before I felt his grip slacken on my wrist. I felt the control return to my body as I ripped my wrist out of his grip. He screamed before the light brightened to an unimaginable level, and then everything went silent. When it faded, I opened my eyes, and then I saw I was in my room again. I cried tears of joy. I thanked God, Jesus, and every holy figure I could think of for getting me the out of that dream. I closed my eyes and tried to get my breathing back under control.
I told you. You are mine.
I heard that deep voice ring out. I shot up in my bed, frantically looking around. There, at the foot of my bed, stood the man. He had a huge grin on his face. His eyes were black. When he saw me looking at him in fear, he licked his lips.
I told you that you would sign the contract.
He was smiling as he held up the scroll. At the very bottom was a tiny dot of red liquid that wasn't there before. I felt tears roll down my cheeks as I looked down at my wrist. There were 3 small scratch marks when I ripped my arm free. Only one of them was deep enough to draw blood. I looked back up at the man. He now stood with a crown of darkness on his head and 2 pitch black wings spread out behind him.
Now, let's get to work.
He said with a smile, waving his hand around him. I looked around me and I saw I was not in my room anymore. I was in a dark room, surrounded by 3 candles. I felt myself start to collapse before a force took control of me and forced me to stand straight. I felt the force control my head to look up. I watched as the man slowly turned around and walked into the shadows.
He's ours now.
The man whispered as he disappeared from sight. As soon as he was lost from my vision, I saw dots appear in the darkness. Some were a blood red, others were a sickly green. Some were a dark orange, others were sickly yellow. Some were an enchanting dark blue, and a couple were soft light blue. The last dots that appeared were a deep, rich, royal purple. As I looked at all the dots, I came to the terrifying realization. They were eyes, and they were all staring at me. And that's it.
Wow. That's pretty wild. Have you ever heard of a story called The Lady or the Tiger?
Lady or the Tiger, I have not.
Yeah, it's a short story, and it was written by Stockton, F.R. Stockton. There's some similarities to that story and this story. And, you know, they're totally different stories, but I just kind of wonder if the main message of The Lady or the Tiger fits this scenario. The main theme, The Lady or the Tiger, are actions and their consequences, the limits of love, the randomness of life, barbarianism versus civilization, justice and human. So it just kind of, struck me like that. And was this dream, first you kind of get this satanic vibe that it's the devil, But then I just kind of wonder if it's different pieces of himself that he's facing kind of in this dream.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe he's struggling to be a better person, or he's being sucked in by some of his other personalities, kind of like the good wolf or the bad wolf, you know, depends on which one you're feeding.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I mean, the similarity of the lady or the tiger, you know, you open the door, is it the lady or is it the tiger?
Yeah, no, I like that. I hadn't heard that. It's a good parallel. To branch a little bit off of and just reading things. Back when I was a camp counselor, a while back, way back in the day, one of the rituals I had in my cabin, because I had, you know, some of the, you know, around teenage, you know, tween to teen age boys in my cabin, and I loved scary stories, and I loved doing stuff like this, like reading the stories to people.
Yeah.
And, you know, one way to get the kids to behave was like, hey man, if you guys, you know, if you clean up the cabin, everything's looking good, you've taken care of, you know, all of the lunch and things like that. Cause I used to work ropes outside, and I'd have to tear down the ropes. So I would be late to food, and my boys would make me my food and set it down for me, and it would be ready for me whenever I'd be in, when everyone, you know, be wrapping up. So I had my kids were super awesome. So I made a deal with them because they were so awesome. I was like, we're going to sit down. I've got, you know, scary stories. We're going to look up creepypastas. We're going to read. I bought some short stories and stuff like that I would go through, but obviously I didn't have any audio equipment or anything like that in front of me.
Right.
So we would be sitting in a dark cabin, you know, in the middle of the forest.
Nice.
And everybody's in their bunks, and I'd be reading their stories to them. And, you know, if something was about to happen, I might like, you know, like bang on the table or something like that. Startle them and stuff like that. I kind of got a little bit of that experience getting to read through that and record that, because I've never really sat down and recorded reading stories before. But I really enjoyed that. I thought that
I thought that was good too. It was a great story.
Good exercise.
Kind of creepy. I like the voices that you were coming up with.
Yeah. So talking more about what's coming down the pipe for things that I'm looking to release. Like I said, I am a musician right now. This podcast that you're listening to is Just Some Podcast. It is brought to you by Just Some Content LLC. But the music side of things is different. So I will be releasing my music through major distributors, you know, Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, things like that in the very near future.
I look forward to listening.
And this podcast is going to be having its own, you know, set of audience that hopefully will be growing out there. But I'm looking forward to showcasing more of my music with the world too. So to catch up the audience a little bit, I have been a musician for the majority of my life at this point, since I was probably like in fourth grade is when I started. I started playing the trumpet back in elementary school.
Yep.
And that was my main instrument all the way through high school. I was fortunate enough, I auditioned and played in Carnegie Hall in New York City with the Honors Performance Series. I played in numerous jazz bands, marching bands. I unfortunately did not get to accept the contract for the Academy Drum and Bugle Corps. It was just too expensive for the time. But I've always had music as a part of my life.
Oh, I remember when you played taps for the last living Congressional Medal of Honor winner that was Hispanic in Glendale. Do you remember
and
that?
Wasn't that from, he was served in the Korean War? Was that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think when you were playing taps, it was actually for another Hispanic Medal of Honor winner from World War II, I believe. I
played the national anthem for Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yeah.
That was really awesome. I played trumpet all throughout that. It wasn't until about, you know, second semester junior year that I had decided to join theater, because I wanted to do a musical, and everybody around me was like, you sing? And I was like, yeah, I guess I did. I do to myself, and I like it, and people thought it was all right. So I found a joy for acting and got to do improv, and I was so bad at my improv audition. I cringe out of my skin thinking about the improv club audition that I had. I'll have Jace on here at some point, and he'll update us all on what it's like to be in that realm. But it wasn't until after graduating high school, going into college, that I had to make room for other things in my life. My university degree and music was not that. It was computer science.
Right.
So I figured, I was like, hey, I'm not a music major. Playing a trumpet in the dorm room, feels like it would just piss off a lot of people. I got a lot of other homework. So sure. I took a step back from music from that regard for a little bit until about, my junior year. I'd say like sophomore year, I started playing, wanting to play the piano again. And you guys got me a keyboard for that Christmas that I still use to this day.
Nice.
And I taught myself guitar after that a little bit, like basics, and
right.
Got through college, started working out in the real world and trying to figure out how to live life. I eventually decided, I was like, I want to start doing some music again, but I'm going to pay for guitar lessons. Went out and did guitar lessons for a little while. And I tend to, with music especially, it's one of those things I feel like I can learn at an accelerated pace for myself.
Oh, sure.
Like,
you're passionate about it.
While starting playing guitar and doing the guitar lessons, I would start talking about, I know all of the bits and pieces of the basic music theory. Let's start working on like technique and finger picking and things like that. So he just helped me, understand the theory behind what I was playing. And I got to listen to music and recreate the music, and became much more proficient at guitar that way. And everywhere I went when I was playing guitar, people were asking me, hey, do you record your music? And I was like, no, I don't. I just play for my captive audience that's in front of me whenever I get the chance, because I've been doing that all my life. I would sit at a piano at somebody else's house, and they'd invite people, and they'd pay me $50 to sit there and play piano for a little bit.
That's pretty awesome.
And I'm not a professional piano player by any means. That's not my main instrument, but I'm finally...
you played it well.
Thank you. I'm at the point now where I'm kind of realizing more of the potential that I have to be able to craft the melodies that are in my head. Call it my ADHD or neurodivergence, what have you. I'm humming things in my head. I'm changing the lyrics to songs and, whatever. I hear music in my head. So I spent the last year getting really into actually producing music. And one of the driving factors was a life-altering car accident that I was in. And I decided after that, I was like, I want to actually put something out there into the world, as opposed to just sitting and playing guitar for myself or others.
Share your passion.
So about a year into this process, I have a lot of different little wave files here. And some of these are super duper small. I wanted to kind of click through and show you some of the progression of the music that I've been able to make over the last year or so.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So the very first sequencer jam I ever made, this was January 18th, 2024. Yep, and then you just play that on a loop and just keep going. And that was the first thing I had ever made with a sequencer. Kind of make you bob your head up and down a little bit like that. Not anything too fancy, right?
Right.
Moving forward, I was like, dude, I want to know what, you got some brass instruments or something like that? You mean to tell me I can play orchestral music? So I came up with this little jazzy fun. And this is, mind you, January 18th of last year. Okay, I was like, not too bad. So at which point I was like, you know what? I want to see if I can play something longer, and I had to figure out my digital audio workstation. So I started working in arrangement view, and I was like, I'm gonna play and come up with a Saw remix. The movie Saw. Bum, 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 bum,
You want to play it.
So yeah, I took it upon myself to make my own little Saw remix. It's important for me to point out that this is not quantized. So there's going to be some parts that are out of time. I hadn't learned how to do that. So started getting to work with some strings a little bit, add some drums. Let me fast forward. Let's see. Yeah, it was all out of time and stuff like that. So I was starting to get to learn my tools a little bit, make some different sounds. My background, like I said, is being a trumpet player, right?
Right.
So I was like, I need to start exploring making more orchestral music. Orchestral music is something like, I think cinematic music is something for me that
scoring a film.
I can see that and I can feel that. And so less so like tech punk or rock or whatever, using more so the, orchestral musics. So, or orchestral instruments. So I came up with this guy January 25th of last year. So that's 1 year ago today.
Wow.
Exactly. 1 year ago today. Exactly. I made this.
Got a Game of Thrones vibe.
Yeah, so I started learning how to play a 64-pad instrument, which after playing, if you can think of piano as just like one dimension left and right? Mm-hmm. Take that and put it into two dimensions. And as somebody that knows music theory, right, you hear about like chords and keys and stuff like that. You got like major, minor, pentatonic, major pentatonic, blues scale, like all different kinds of stuff. 64-pad instrument, you can apply the rules of theory across the 64 pads, and you can tell it whether or not you want it to be in the key or not, or if you want to see it in, all of the steps in between and stuff like that. So it kind of takes away a little bit of the thinking when you're playing on a 64-pad instrument for me, because I can pick the theory and immediately jump to the sound that I want and start going for it. I named this Red Orc Rises. It's much more that orchestral side of things.
Okay.
This is named Red Orc Rises. For everybody out there, you haven't met Red Orc yet. I've been recording a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough with my cousin, and his name is Red Orc, and he plays a Red Orc. All right. Yeah. So yeah, you kind of heard in that last piece a little bit more of the, starting to learn how to blend elements of things. I started experimenting with a technology while making music. It's called MIDI polyphonic expression. It's MPE is what it is. And normally whenever you're playing an instrument, or like thinking like you're playing a digital keyboard or whatever, it's detecting the velocity, how hard you're hitting something. MPE gives you extra dimensions of sound. So I have the ability to press the pad down, and then it has polyphonic aftertouch. So I can press let up and press harder, and it will pick up on that sound, kind of like fluctuate.
So
That's not dependent upon just the velocity that you hit once. And then if I slide my finger up or down on the pad, that affects a dimension of sound. If I lean my fingers left or right, that affects another dimension of sound. And then if I slide between the pads, then I will pitch shift through those ranges. So I created this piece called Beneath the Snow. I started learning about this. This was March 15th of last year. And this is one of the few early songs that I made that uses MPE. So think of like a color palette, how you're trying to make a picture, right, with color. This is a sound palette, all these different sounds. And I was feeling pretty hopeless at the time because of all the stuff I was experiencing with my car accident. My hands had been damaged and I was trying to learn to use this instrument. So I came up with this song called Beneath the Snow. And it sounds, and it'll sound more like anxiety inducing. If you're wearing headphones, you'll get the best benefit, which you, sir, just so happen to be wearing some headphones right now.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear it.
So you're going to be hearing a lot of dimension of sound here, and you're going to be hearing things that are going back and forth between your ears, around you. It might make you anxious, and that's
what you were feeling, huh?
That's what I was feeling. So
right,
this is Beneath the Snow. So yeah, that was Beneath the Snow.
That was cool. I could feel the anxiety. Actually, it was kind of in waves a little bit.
Yeah. To kind of, without going through every piece of music that I have made, I want to take you to like stepping into the realm of singing and vocals and stuff like that.
Okay.
Vocals, right? So I make music. I feel most comfortable making music that doesn't have lyrics right now, and like singing adds another element to making something sound good, right? It's not just, you can't just buy the best things in the world and then all of a sudden everything is top. There's a lot of sound engineering that goes into it that I'm still trying to figure out. I decided to record a song playing piano, and I believe this one I set up and was playing the piano and singing it at the same time. So recording those two elements And I've showed this to you before. This song is called Truce. This is a cover of a 21 Pilots song, actually.
Now the night is coming to an end. The sun will rise and we will try again. Stay alive for me. You will die, but now your life is free. Take pride in what is sure to die. I will fear the night again. I hope I'm not my only friend. Stay alive for me. You will die, now your life is free. Take pride in what is true to
That sounded really good. I like that.
Yeah, that was there's definitely, I mean, you can hear like pitch correction and stuff in there. My goal is not to make it perfect by any means at this stage. It's more so just trying to do something and do something again, but different, and do it over and over and over again. And you learn something new each time. So I was pretty proud of that. Yeah. Welcome to the show, Gene. Gene has heard some of my pieces of music that I have made. I'm going to throw on another one out there. So I was telling my dad that music that I make with lyrics is a little bit more difficult. So I've been, focused on recreating all of the other aspects, maybe throwing in lyrics here or there. But when I've been creating things, a lot of the time has been, things that don't have lyrics. One of the things I think I'm pretty good at is orchestral sounds and, strings and stuff like that, suspense and ominous, spooky kind of sounds. So I came up with this one. I made this February 5th, 2024, and I just called it Dark and Gloomy. Yeah. So I was first starting to learn how to kind of compose music at that point in my DAW, but I'm pretty happy with some of the stuff.
Yeah, it sounded really good.
Looking back.
I liked it.
Well, remember when we were talking the other night and I was telling you about composing for movie scores? Right there. You're feeling the suspense build up to the opening. Da da.
Yeah, it's
little sympathy.
I think for me, I try to paint a picture with sound a little bit, and try to let you establish kind of what that picture looks like. I have made a lot of YouTube videos in my day, but I was telling my dad that I want to focus a little bit more on the audio side of things. I made this piece of music first. I played a game called Frostpunk. Have you ever heard of this game?
Never have.
All right. Frostpunk is a really interesting concept of a game where you are managing the last city on Earth, where you're in a timeline where a massive cold has taken over, and these people have migrated, and they've built a gigantic generator in the middle of the city, and you are there and you're managing the citizens, and that you have children that are there. Some people might become disabled, and you have to have all of these policies that you put in place. But I played through this game, and after beating it for the first time, I came up with this piece of music, and then I made the video on top of it. So the actual video that I put on top of it is like the intro sequence of the game that, they're telling you all of the cinematics. But I think that the music stands kind of on its own. So whenever you're hearing these sounds, visualize like this is the last city in existence in a blizzard. Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Marchmen! Do not give in to the snow! We must keep the generator alive! Work time! Fight the cold! Do not give in! The storm is coming! Move, man! My God! She's gonna blow!
Very good. Very good. Very cinematic. I mean,
Thank you.
drama.
Yeah, I thought that was definitely a piece that was like, I have a video that goes with it and kind of helps visually depict what's going on, but I definitely thought
And
it
then
was,
the voice in the background's off the game.
that's me.
That's you?
Yeah.
The storm is coming.
Yeah, so I took some of the elements from the game
Oh, okay.
and just kind of recorded myself doing them, adding some of the effects and stuff. So I think it's kind of fun to be able to create a little bit of a world and paint a picture.
It did sound exactly what you're narrating. The storm is coming, and it's here. And
Yeah. So the idea of painting a picture with sound, I think, is something that I've always appreciated. Having something being able to visualize. I was going through my car accident, all the legal bullshit that you had to deal with at the very end of that, and I had to be deposed. I got deposed, and
that's never fun.
No, it's not. And you sit there and you have somebody, try to fish for some sort of issue, problem that you've ever had in your entire life. And they look for, they're just trying to paint a picture of you that's bad. I listened to my lawyer and, he told me, he goes, they're not your friends. This is not a conversation. This is a legal proceeding.
No,
so they're not your friend.
You're sworn in and you're telling the truth. And that's what they're trying to do is strip you up.
I did this for 45 minutes. I got deposed and got to the end of it. And you kind of feel drained after that, and you want to, just veg out. So I made this song that day, the day I got deposed, and I called it Adrift. The visual that I have that kind of came to my mind for this, I'll explain after you play it. Okay. But I want to hear kind of what you feel knowing the title is Adrift, okay? What came to mind?
Well, to me, if I'm sitting with my attorney, it put me to hear, listening to the question, have my answer because I've listened to my attorney, and just kind of making the whole experience basically like a dream. Like you're over here watching it from the third person.
Yeah, the visual for me when I made that was an astronaut, a lone astronaut, adrift in space. And you just, like you said, kind of a little bit detached, a little bit. You're just foggy. You're just going in whatever direction you have to go.
Right. Like that's kind of what I'm thinking, like an out of body experience, and I'm watching this whole thing go on, you know, from the perspective of I'm watching myself and the whole proceeding.
Music for me has definitely become a tool of trying to give some sense to something that I feel like words don't generally give me the ability to express.
Right.
You know, is music like that for you?
Yeah. Always. Music always has been used to convey comedy, drama, horror, fear, everything. Growing up, you watched all the shows from the 50s and 60s. It was really, it's like the background music started the show. You knew the pace of the show was going to be, or what was going to happen, or what happened.
Yeah, no,
music makes you laugh, you cry.
We had a conversation a long time ago. I think I told my dad, I said, if you didn't put music into movies or games or anything like that, like you've just lost an element.
Oh, exactly.
Music controls the flow of everything, like the dynamic, the emotional response to it. And I think that's one of the beautiful things to me about it is like the emotional response. Sometimes if I'm feeling really mad, you know, I might want to sit down and listen to an Eminem song and throw out a whole bunch of, you know, swear words or whatever. just feel, you know, mad about it, purge it, and then move on. And then I actually create, you know, I've got a couple of different playlists on Spotify that I've aggregated different sounds. And I've got one called In My Feels that, you know, is like songs that you listen to specifically because you're like, I need to cry today, you know, like, and that's an okay thing that the music does that.
Yeah,
I think it's very
one
powerful.
Called driving music.
Yeah, something like that. That's like scenic, you know. I think music has that power to, you know, communicate with anybody on any level. It doesn't matter if you speak the same, you know, physical language. I think music kind of communicates an emotional language.
Oh, exactly. I agree 100%.
Speaking of music, I mean, you are, to my knowledge, you said that you got to go to a Pink Floyd concert back in the day, didn't you?
Animals tour.
Tell me about that.
It was a visual. It was in the Coliseum in Phoenix, and I don't know if you've ever been in there, but my dad used to work with the Phoenix JCs, and I used to go with him, and they do pancake breakfasts to fundraise to build the Coliseum. And then we got the Phoenix Suns, and then they started having concerts, and I think they even had ice hockey in there for a while, didn't they?
Did they have like a whole bunch of lasers during the show? Because they were really big in that.
It was laser smoke, but they had every animal, the pig floating, a cow, giant inflatable animals that were like radio controlled. And this is, late 70s, early 80s, I think.
Uh-huh.
And they flew around the Coliseum and come down onto the audience.
I get so jealous about like the musical generation that you guys grew up with rock music and, you know, just Queen was phenomenal.
And got to see the original members.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and the Beatles and things like that. My dad said that he got to see, you know, Paul McCartney perform.
Yeah, see, I never got to do that. And I used to tell your dad that back when concert prices really started going up, when the ticket brokers took over the ticket market and stuff, and you might have to pay $100 for a ticket, you know. And I told him, I said, the only people I'd ever pay $100 to see would have been the Beatles, ever.
Yeah. And nowadays, right, here's a little anecdote for you of how expensive it is to go to a concert. I took my sister, I promised her that I'd take her to 21 Pilots concert. And in my infinite wisdom, I waited way too long to buy the tickets because I was under the impression that this would be reasonable, right? Like it wouldn't be anything that would break the bank. And I get to Ticketmaster and I take a look at it and I was like, what seats are available? And they literally, these were like the last tickets I feel like they were in existence. $500.
Oh,
I had
my
to pay
God.
$500 for 2 tickets.
Plus fees.
Oh yeah. It was probably like $530 to go see 21 Pilots. So I just son of a bitch, like I can't break my promise. So I bought the tickets and, told her, I was like, we're going to go to 21 Pilots. And she asks me, she goes, what seats do we have? And I was like, well, they gotta be at least decent, thinking to myself, it's gotta be okay. Right. We walk in. When I tell you, we went to the tippy top of the tallest part of this building, and my back was up against the concrete and there was a pillar in my face. And I looked down at all the people that are in the mosh pit, like at the very bottom, in the very front, standing room only. And I know people that are at this concert and they're all down there. And I look at Caitlin and I'm like, wow. And we see these people next to us. We go, excuse us, how much did you pay for your tickets? And they were like, oh man, I think it was like $45. Like,
Oh man.
My heart, they were drinking beers. And I was like, I can't spend $13 on a gigantic beer, or probably like $17.
I think I paid $20 for a pair of Pink Floyd tickets, reserved seat. And the way the Coliseum was set up, it was set up for the Phoenix Suns for a basketball court. So they set their stage up in the far end where they bring stuff in. So they didn't have, in the far end where the seats were above a tunnel. Uh-huh. So the stage was built level to the top of the tunnel there, so they could still bring stuff under the stage and stuff. Our seats were off to just kind of the left stage level, because I thought the floor was standing room only. Why do I want to stand and look up at the stage? So we were right there level with the stage, could see everybody with Pink Floyd, didn't have to look at any screen. They had kind of screens set up at both ends. But the Animals, they were huge. I mean, it was like if they hit then they would take the acoustic tiles. They would have some of them move so lights could come through. Because it was a light show, and when the smoke comes out,
that was big for the time. Wasn't it?
Because they had to have smoke to get the lights to show up behind the stage.
Yeah, and you got to sync it with the music.
They didn't have
and
the giant
send it to switches
screens and stuff like they have now.
It was a very regimented, thing to be
analog.
Analog. Yeah, to throw that all together was just an amazing period of music.
The soundboard in front of the stage, it was a huge production. There was a stage where all the sound engineers sat that were running everything. It was huge. But yeah, $20 to $500, and I could see the guys on stage and see their faces.
Yeah, no, it was ridiculous. I didn't even have a pair of binoculars. But I've gone to a couple of different concerts over the last handful of years. I want to see more music live. I think that it's much different experience. I love to listen through albums all the way. My partner kind of listens to music at random, They're like, I got one playlist and it's called Liked Songs and it's got 2,000 songs in it. No, but she has a couple different really awesome albums that are like Greek mythology that she listens to.
Yeah, you'll need Bitcoin pretty soon. That'll be the price of a concert ticket, is whatever Bitcoin rated
a single Bitcoin per concert.
Yeah.
And it'll all go on inside of VR chat or something like that. This is a piece that I had made, and I don't have any sort of video for it.
Okay.
I sat down and typed out a little script a while ago, just kind of thinking about this type of project and like what I'm trying to do and what I'd like to accomplish. And I made this. It's called Sea of Content. Okay. I don't have any video.
Okay.
For it. I've released it on SoundCloud like a long time ago. I would like your thoughts.
All right, let's hear it.
In a sea of endless content, who am I? I am just another drop in the ocean of people trying to grab enough of your attention to get you to click that subscribe button. Millions of hours of content are uploaded each minute. How will I ever stand out? Do I really think I'm capable of entertaining anyone? Today is the day I pick up the camera again. Another passing thought, another opportunity to seize something tangible. And yet,
I'm unable to coerce my neurons to fire in just the right way to get me to take a single step in the direction of my dream. But something's changed within me recently. I no longer want to hide behind the fear of rejection. I'm starting to see past the clouds of lies I tell myself, the echoes of doubt and judgment that have found their home inside me for far too long. Truth be told, I'm an artist, and my art is born from my lived experiences. Like many other artists, trauma has its role in my story. The fire within me to express myself, to find therapy through the process, and the purge of emotion I experience when completing a project fuels me to continue. You see, I'm a creator at my very core. Whether I'm working for a Fortune 50 company as a software engineer, crafting melodies such as this in my DAW, playing my guitar and singing, pouring my heart into expressing my emotions through writing, or adventuring on the next passion just beyond the horizon. I believe I am a bit of a Renaissance man, like an octopus interacting with many different mediums at once, very fluid in my interests. Doubt and negative self-talk have kept me from venturing back into this space for nearly a decade. And it's about time I got the ball rolling again. So this time, I'm gonna do it right. What exactly do I hope to achieve in this new chapter? There exists a reservoir of possibilities I wish to explore, and I'm excited to see what resonates with this audience. Along the way, I aim to share part of my story with you all, make you laugh, and create room for engaging conversations with quality people of all backgrounds. I'm excited to continue releasing quality content for you all. Please let me know what videos resonate with you, and leave a comment to let me know what you enjoyed. Your feedback is invaluable in helping me produce content you enjoy. If you're intrigued by my story, hit that subscribe button and join me on this journey. As always, I'm just some dude on the internet. Thank you for joining me.
So that was the sea of content. I came up with that in June, and I haven't ever played that really in front of other people, but I was kind of curious what your thoughts were on that.
I like it. It really added depth to what you had to say. So it just, you just almost could visualize what you were saying.
Yeah, and I think that to a certain degree, sometimes creating, I love things like this that are live and wholesome and in the moment and all that too. But whenever you get the opportunity to write a script, write your thoughts out a little bit,
Yeah.
And so I sat down in one setting and wrote the script, recorded my voice first, and then came up with the music and listened to my voice and tried to score it with it. So it was also a little bit of an exercise in trying to score something. I've been trying to work on that. That's a skill set in and of itself. But yeah, I think that kind of ties back to what we said at the very beginning when we were talking about I want to be able to tell stories, entertain people. It's a variety of things, not just, one little bucket. All right.
I like it.
All right. Until next time. Thank you, everybody. I'm just some dude on the internet.
I'm just some dad.
You're some uncle.
All right. See ya.